felt stressed by work, by relationships, your financial situation, your living environment, all of those can be an incredible source of stress, which is not always bad. We'll get to why stress can be good, but there's another kind of stress, the one you've been walking around with most of your life, and that is called invisible stress. And you probably had no idea you were walking around with it. Well, Dr. Sylvia LaFair writes all about that in her new book, appropriately titled Invisible Stress. And if you know Sylvia like I know Sylvia, she walks the talk. So, Sylvia,
Hey, Joe.
why did you write this book? Was it because you had all this invisible stress pent up and you realized that it was just laying there within you and needed to come out? Or was it something that you realized many, many years ago and are finally sharing it?
Well, it's interesting. I wrote the book during COVID's worst time because everybody who called me who had other issues was saying, the first thing they said is, I'm so stressed. I'm going crazy. I can't stand it. What do I do with the stress? So I thought I better do a deep dive into stress. And it took me back to my childhood because invisible stress is with us all the time. It's kind of like Halloween is over, but those ghosts woo, 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 are in back of us where the stress is and how we handle it. And when I was a kid, my father was in a family business with his two brothers, and they seemed to fight an awful lot. And I remember one day he came home from work and I heard him complaining to my mother, and he said, I'm done. And we didn't know how prophetic it was because he died of a heart attack, sudden heart attack in the middle of the night. I was 14. It wasn't fun, but that made me really, after that, everybody's saying it was stress, it was work, it was stress, it was work. And I thought, I'm not going to work because I don't want stress. But then, I became a family therapist to find out what went on, what was wrong with this. And what I found was it was the invisible stress that we all live with from childhood that kind of stays with us, no matter what the stress of the day is.
How did you see that play out in your life? How did you see your father's passing and the stress that resulted from that? Because one thing I know you've told me is that as children, we learn coping skills. Mm-hmm. And those coping skills are coping skills as kids, but then we carry them with us and we forget about them and we have them inside, and that becomes that invisible stress. So how did that play out in your life? How did you notice that rearing its head?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when I heard that stress killed my father, and he was more of a quiet type, I thought, well, I don't want stress, so I'll just shout it out. And I am the original drama queen.
Really?
Yeah, shock. But if something really stressful happens, I shout it out and I don't stuff it down. But you know what? Somewhere in the middle of this is the safe stress zone where we practice safe stress, which is really what I had to learn, because shouting it out and being the drama queen is fun, but that's all it is fun. It doesn't get you anywhere.
So let's talk about, because in the book you talk about the four everyday stresses, and one is invisible stress. But so quickly, let's go through the first three.
Well, the first one is called Eustress, and I love that. It's you, not Y-O-U, it's E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S. And that's the good stress. It's like when on the Today Show, when you had to produce something and put things, did you ever feel stress?
Right. It's that adrenaline stress. It's that adrenaline pumping, excited stress. Yes. Did I ever feel stress? How about 24 hours a day? Minus maybe the 1 hour I slept. Yes.
But it's interesting because it is adrenaline. It keeps you going. And it's like before you go on stage or something, everybody says their heart's pumping, and, it's not bad. It moves you forward. So that's Eustress.
And that's good to have, even though you feel like your heart's going to pound out of your chest sometimes.
Well, it's interesting because you learn how to work with it. And you don't say, oh, I'm stressed. You say, oh, great, I'm stressed. It's a different way of talking about
Or
stress.
you say, oh gosh, I have to get up in front of all those people and speak. I'm stressed.
Well, it's like me getting on Zoom and making sure everything's working properly.
So
But
you learn from it.
it keeps you focused.
Right.
And that's what's good. So that's the first stress. The other we all know is acute stress. And that's you're driving the car and all of a sudden you go, I know that tree wasn't there 2 seconds ago. Bam. But that's the one where you inhale and you forget to exhale for the moment. But it also keeps you going. Acute stress, it will happen to all of us, and it comes from way back when. If you were walking in the forest and a bear or a tiger or whatever was there would be there, you would get battle ready.
Well, it reminds me of when I was a child. I was petting my dog and my dog bit me in my face. I mean, bad, so bad that I needed plastic surgery twice. I had a fear of dogs. We got that dog to get me over my fear. But now every time, and all these years later, 40 years later, I'm walk into someone's house, or the other day I walked into a bar in North Carolina and there was a dog there, and I saw the dog and I tensed up. And I thought, okay, just relax, because one, the dog can see you tensing up or feel you tensing up. But as soon as I see a dog, no matter where I am, if I'm out for a run, if I'm wherever I am, I tense up because of that dog biting me in my face.
You get battle ready.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You need to be aware of what's going on. The problem is when acute stress isn't handled. You got it handled as you were growing up, and you had the thought that dog is not going to bother me, and then you wait to exhale. The other stress is chronic stress, and that one has, I don't want to go into the specifics of it, but it's the one that so many people walk around with. And if the acute stress isn't handled, and we'll take your fear of the dog, you become afraid of anything, any loud noise, anywhere.
Or any animal anywhere.
Anything. Well, it could even be a car backfiring, it could be anything, but you become afraid and it stays with you, and it begins to really do damage to your nervous system, to your psychology, to your biology. And the way we've been handling it is mostly through medication, which is fine for a specific reason for a short period of time. But if you keep doing it too long, you're never going to learn how to undo the chronic stress. Does that make sense?
It does. I would imagine that some other examples of chronic stress are dealing with a boss who is either intolerable or unreasonable, and having to deal with that every single day, or taking care of an elderly parent on your own every day. Would those be some examples also of chronic stress in your life?
Well, they begin as acute. You have a boss who's nasty, and you have that acute inhale, forgetting to exhale, but then your mind takes over. And that all leads to, and I believe me, I think medication can help. There are natural products that can help to calm the stress down. But we have to get underneath that to see, where did it really come from, this feeling of stress? So let me just put in one thing here for everybody who's watching this, is there is a process. It's called EMDR. And you can look it up online. I don't want to go into a lot of detail. People say, what does it mean? And Francine Shapiro, who was the founder of this concept, said if she were to change the name, it wouldn't be what she named it. It's called EMDR, eye movement desensitization and revitalization. Now, if that isn't a mouthful.
Did she have a new name that she preferred?
Well, she's passed on to another dimension now, but I'm sure she would change it if she was still here. But the idea is that when you're in acute stress, like hitting the tree, all the peripheral vision goes, you're just focused on what's going on. And EMDR can help when the acute stress becomes chronic stress, using eye movements. I suggest people go online and look it up. It's very interesting.
And is it something people can do on their own, or do they need to have an EMDR specialist work with them?
Yeah, no, you need somebody to do it with you. You know, when I first heard about it and went to a program that she was doing, I thought, oh, it's going to be some fancy, silly kind of thing. But she actually, had us working in pairs, and whoever I worked with, we looked at my stress from my father's death, and I did feel a difference. Something else other relaxed in me after that. So I suggest that you look, and there are EMDR practitioners everywhere now.
And is it, just for people who are wondering, is it one session or is it many sessions?
Depends on your situation and how you work with, I've done it with one session, and I've seen major changes. That's what happened to me when I did it. But for other people with different things, it could take 2, 3, 4 sessions. And it's part of a larger process. But I just want to put that in as something to look up.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You talk about that, and I know you use it often, and I've always wanted to try it, but haven't yet. So,
oh, well, you know what? What's crazy, we're not going to do it now, but at some point we'll set a time. I've learned how to do it on Zoom, and it actually works. I thought it's moving your eyes and you have to be with the Zoom has made it work. So that's great.
Maybe we can do another one of these, and we can, do EMDR, and we can see what happens.
Okay. You have to pick the situation. Don't make it too personal.
Okay, let's move on. So the fourth kind of everyday stress, the hidden stress, the invisible stress, is the one that we've been living with our entire life. So does everyone have it?
Well, the short answer is yes. So we're done. Everybody. And when you dig down, that's for me where the excitement is, because, people have called me, I'm telling you, I didn't make this up, but people would call me Dr. Transformation, because when you go down to this level, you can take what isn't working the way in your life you really want it to work, and you can change it. You can transform it. So if what we're going to talk about now with invisible stress, and we're just going to kind of do the brief version of that. There's more in certainly the book and the program that I've developed to really begin to look at stress from another vantage point. As kids, well, let me ask you this, Joe. When you are really, something comes at you and there's a lot of stress, is your basic nature to shout it out or stuff it down?
Totally stuff it down. And my thinking is, the more I stuff it down, the less I have to talk about it, which makes me think about it. So if it's something that really bothers me, I just push it as far down as I can, so I don't have to think about it, which I know is very healthy.
So therefore, you think about it without thinking about it.
Right. I think about it in my own private hell. And if I shout it out, then people will know something's going on, and then they'll ask me about it or talk to me about it, and I don't want to talk about it.
Well, it's interesting, but it's still there.
Right.
So you on the stuff it down side, you live in an area, there are tons of people who stuff it down. You live with all the people who live in Zombieville. Very quiet there, because everybody's stuffing it down. I, on the other hand, fall on the shout it out, and I'm in Freakoutville. So we're all there, making probably often more of something than it should be. It's fun. Yours is, I don't want to be bothered. Mine is, let's have fun and redirect it. But it's neither way works.
Neither way is healthy, I would imagine.
No,
But your
no.
way sounds a little bit healthier because at least you're
Well,
releasing it from your body.
not really, because it goes in directions that get people really annoyed with you,
Oh yeah, I can
you
imagine
know,
that.
and it doesn't get you where it's after a while, those of us who live in Freakoutville, if we meet somebody, they go, oh, there she is again. And they roll their eyes and say, God, I hope they would rather I be with you in the stuff it down place. But here's what the book is about, and what this work on stress came to is, if you really begin to look at where it came from and you are able to transform it, you move into what I call the safe stress zone. So you're in the zone of between 1 and 10, you're in the 5-6 zone. Okay. And that's where you practice safe stress. So if you have to, for you, say something about why you're so stressed, you find the communication skills to say it properly. And for me, coming from the drama queen place where people don't really hear you when you're shouting it out and making all that noise, they just hear the noise. You learn the communication skills to say it in a proper way. So you want to know, again, I'll tell you what the types are. There are certain types of people, like the super achiever, which is partly me, lives in Freakoutville. They're the me guy or gal.
Right.
And if you say something, they have to do the one-upmanship. They're always better. And if you say something, they have to say it a little louder. And if you say it a little louder, they'll get a little louder, right?
Right.
Make sense?
Yes.
So there are 4 of them over there. And, there's a way to figure out where you fit in this. I want to go to the other side where you are. And I don't know if this...
In Zombieville?
In Zombieville. Who lives in Zombieville are pleasers. And pleasers, smile sweetly, Joanne. Pleasers will say yes. In their minds, they're saying, you've got to be kidding, but that'll never come out of their mouths. They'll just say it. So pleasers have to learn both sides. The super achiever learns to be a creative collaborator. So they don't have to be the only one doing it. They get others to help, and it quiets down their stress level. For the pleaser learns how to say no. And, I've been saying this for years. Remember, no is a complete sentence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not yeah, no.
It's hard. It's hard for pleasers to say no. And it's hard for pleasers because the work that goes into telling people we're annoyed, or telling people we're worried about something, or sharing our stress, is then confrontation sometimes, which is work. And sometimes when you just smile and say, figure it out for yourself why I'm smiling with a little bit of a clenched jaw, then, and when you don't figure out why I'm smiling with a clenched jaw, I'm going to be even more angry. So
we have to go down there and look at the patterns we learn in our original organization, which is the family. It's where we learned it. Doesn't matter if you had a mother, father, a puppy, a kitten, a white picket fence, the old model of what was supposed to be, if you came from a single parent family, if you were in foster care, if you were adopted, you were in some form of an original organization.
go
ahead.
That's what I found very interesting, that even your birth, you could come from the picture perfect family and the picture perfect house and picture perfect dog, but even your birth order can put stress on you.
Oh, absolutely.
Which you can
that was the other piece that, well, I'll just share this. I have an older brother who was kind of king of the hill, and then cute little Sylvia came along. But whatever my brother said was magical. I mean, he could say tomorrow's Thursday, and my parents would go, oh, that's brilliant. I would say tomorrow's Thursday. They go, that's so sweet. So again, the drama queen, the shout it out, I learned that because I had to find a way to be heard. I don't know about you and your family, if that was a situation. Can you think of something?
I can think of a couple of things. I mean, I think in my family, yeah, my sister was the loud one. And so I became the quiet one. In thinking about it actually right now, she was the one who, when there was rebellion in the house, she was the rebellious teenager, and I was the, I'll go make my bed, or I'll go clean my room. And I was sort of the good girl. So I can see where the stuffing it down came from, because she was always shouting it out. So I became, and she was shouting, and I became the stuff it down, because that was enough noise in the
Well,
house.
it's interesting because that's great. I mean, not great that she
Right.
shouted out, and you, not great that my brother was the king of the hill and I was just a cute little girl, but it happens. And once you begin to understand this, you learn how to manage stress very, very differently. And that's what I really want people to know. There are patterns that we develop that we keep. And it's especially when stress hits the hot button. You know, we can be kind and good and fine, but at some point the stress gets to the boiling point, and that's where we revert back to the patterns. So I think that's enough information for today. I don't want to
Overload anyone.
yeah. but looking at this and looking at stress from these situations makes a heck of a difference.
And especially when there's enough stress in the world as we live in every day, to identify that invisible stress. It's an extra thing we don't need to be carrying around with us. So it's it just makes that baggage a little bit lighter once we identify what that is. And in Sylvia's book, Invisible Stress, there are so many examples and to help you along, figure out where you are in your life and what stresses you out. And for the introduction of that book, you can go to, it's CE options, CEO Ptions, CEOPITIONS.com. And you can read the intro to Sylvia's book, Invisible Stress, and you can also find it on Amazon. And it's really, I mean, I read it in a day, and with my highlighter. And it's a great reference book for my library. And whenever I am talking to a friend or having any situation in my life that arises out of nowhere, I go to it as a guide. So thank you, Sylvia.
Well, and thank you, Joe, and to be continued.